Welcome to StarryCast with Vera and Theo.
Today we're launching into a really comprehensive deep dive, getting into the astrological archetype of Taurus.
Exactly. Our goal isn't just the usual keywords. We want to get to the grounded power of this sign, really understand it.
And we'll be digging into its core essence. The element, the modality, its ruling planet Venus.
Right.
And looking at both the key strengths and maybe some of the common challenges too.
Yeah, the whole picture. We're aiming for a clear, warm, and, well, fundamentally grounded take on Taurus for you.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's start unpacking that core essence. We hear a lot about Taurus and sensory pleasure, but what's really going on inside?
Well, the true Taurian, I think, is a profoundly feeling individual.
Yep.
That's key.
Okay.
But because they're rooted in the earthy triplicity,
The physical world.
exactly, the physical world, those feelings often come out in a physical, objective way. They're experienced through the senses, not just floating around as abstract emotions.
Okay. So think about how they connect with texture or taste or scent.
Precisely. It's a very embodied experience of emotion.
That focus on the physical, it really changes things. It's not mere indulgence then.
Not at all. It's a fundamental way they process feelings. And think about this. Taurus governs the neck.
The neck.
Interesting.
What's the symbolism there?
Well, symbolically, it suggests this capacity for service, for support, rather than necessarily needing to be out front leading the charge.
Like carrying the weight.
Exactly. The neck supports the head. It implies trustworthiness, the ability to shoulder responsibility. That's why you often find Taurians are excellent in roles needing reliability representation. Public servants, for example.
That's a really insightful connection. Service through strength. How's that different from, say, Aries?
Well, Aries types often live more in their minds, right? In ideas, initiation.
Mm-hmm.
The Taurian experience feels more filtered through the tangible world, through those deep, often unspoken physical feelings.
So a different way of engaging. Sensing and feeling first, maybe.
I think so. You could say Taurus represents the completed ego learning to deal with both the physical and the social world.
Oh, okay.
Not as enemies, but as frameworks. Frameworks for learning effectiveness, realities you have to adapt to, and ultimately serve. There's a sense of interdependence.
Grounded responsibility within the world as it is.
That nails it.
Mm.
And there's this deep need in Taurus for their work to be seen, for the quality of what they produce to be acknowledged.
The tangible results.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They often lean towards conforming, maybe a bit cautious, perhaps, learning lessons after the expressive energies of Leo, which precedes it.
Right, so caution isn't weakness, it's considered.
Exactly.
Deliberate.
And that ties into their basic honesty, their realism. Taurians often strive for perfection, or at least real success, through careful self-critique, self-analysis.
A practical approach to getting better. Real-world improvement.
For sure. And because the physical world is unpredictable, that can genuinely bother them.
Mm-hmm, that lack of control.
Right. So they often try to gain some control by focusing on the details, managing what can be managed meticulously.
And that connects to aesthetics, too.
Absolutely. It fuels their high aesthetic standards. They appreciate beauty, but it usually needs to have a function. That's why Taurus is so strongly linked to crafts, making things that are both beautiful and useful.
Beauty with purpose. Yeah, that captures it.
So summing up the essence, it's an influence of precision, of real care. Investing to create something solid, something lasting.
All right, that gives us a solid foundation for the essence. Let's pivot to the element, Earth. What does being an Earth sign fundamentally mean for Taurus?
Well, like you said, it's the earthy triplicity. That firmly plants Taurus in the physical objective world. Earth signs are all about stability, what's tangible, what's practical.
Right, the concrete stuff. Very different from air or fire.
Totally. Think about the contrast with water signs, too. Water is often about the depths of emotion, the soul.
More fluid.
Right. Earth is the actual substance of everyday reality. The ground beneath our feet, the stuff we build our lives on.
That need for a solid foundation feels very Taurian. That drive for security.
It's a crucial link, definitely. The earth element directly connects to needing material resources, physical safety, just to feel okay emotionally.
Ah, so it's a prerequisite for emotional well-being.
For Taurus, often yes. Especially if you look at the moon in Taurus. The moon is our emotional core, right? In Taurus, it really highlights that need for tangible security to feel emotionally stable and settled.
So their emotional roots really need that stable, fertile ground to thrive.
That's a perfect analogy. Earth provides that inherent rootedness, that sense of permanence that's just so central to how Taurus operates.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about the modality? Taurus is a fixed sign. What does fixed bring to the table astrologically?
Fixed modality, in general, relates to integration. It's about consolidating energy, and it connects to those instinctual behaviors that are pretty universal in human consciousness.
So, less about starting things or changing things, more about holding steady, maintaining.
Exactly. The fixed signs, that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, they all share this focus on an instinctual drive to create stability, security. Their energy naturally goes towards preserving, maintaining what's already there.
Which really reinforces that Taurian need for security we just talked about with the earth element.
Absolutely. The modality amplifies it. But of course, that strong desire for stability can be a challenge when change is needed.
Right.
Resisting disruption, keeping things as they are, that's the default mode for a fixed sign.
I can definitely see how that's a double-edged sword. Great perseverance, but maybe difficult when flexibility is key.
That's the trade-off.
Yeah.
Even the moon, which is usually pretty adaptable, emotionally responsive.
Yeah.
When it's in fixed Taurus, it becomes more resolute, less easily swayed, emotionally speaking.
Like their internal weather system is set and doesn't change quickly.
That's a good way to put it. The fixed quality really contributes to that characteristic Taurian steadiness, but also their potential resistance to shifts.
Okay, fixed Earth. Very solid. Now let's bring in the ruling planet, Venus. We all know Venus means love and beauty, but how does it specifically shape Taurus?
Venus, as Taurus's ruler, infuses the sign with, well, all those Venusian things. Love, beauty, harmony, pleasure, and a deep sense of values. These energies tend to show up as spontaneous attractions, a natural pull towards what feels good, looks good, sounds good. And importantly, it's about affinity, things coming together without forcing it, without violating anyone's nature.
So it's an innate appreciation, not something superficial.
Correct. It's fundamental valuing of beauty, comfort, the sensual side of life.
Yeah.
It helps to contrast Venus with Mars. Mars is about, establishing identity, assertion.
Right, pushing forward.
Yeah. For Venus to work well, especially in Taurus, you actually need a solid sense of self-worth first. You need to know what you value to really embody that Venusian pull towards harmony and pleasure.
Interesting. So self-awareness is key to how that Venusian energy plays out.
Definitely. And providing that sense of harmony, beauty in your environment that's just as Venusian for Taurus as having material resources, both build that enjoyable, stable existence.
That link between harmony and material comfort under Venus, that's important. It's not just about stuff.
No, it's holistic well-being. It's also worth noting where Venus is exalted in Pisces.
Oh, right.
That highlights Venus's highest potential, you could say. Profound spiritual love, healing capacity, heightened aesthetic sensitivity. It shows the potential for Venus to reach great compassion, great artistry.
Venus finding its peak in the watery, compassionate realm of Pisces. It's a beautiful image.
It is. And of course, where Venus falls in your chart and the aspects it makes, that adds more layers, like Venus in the 10th house career, public image.
Right.
That often points to social or artistic goals, maybe a career in the arts, sometimes even seeking partners who boost status or finances. It can also mean good relationships with bosses, maybe success through connections, especially with the opposite sex in a career context.
So Venus's placement really colors professional life and even relationship choices related to it.
It can, yeah. Or think about an aspect like Venus square Uranus. That might bring a desire for excitement, novelty in relationships, maybe even testing boundaries, pushing things a bit just to keep it stimulating, avoid boredom.
Sounds like it could add a bit of unpredictability to the usually steady Taurian love life.
It certainly can inject that energy. Then you have, say, Venus conjunct Neptune. That can signify a really high spiritual connection in relationships, deep empathy, healing potential, that aesthetic sensitivity, again, being very receptive.
Oh, very deep.
Very deep emotional connection. But if that conjunction is, let's say, afflicted by difficult aspects, it could also mean being overly sentimental, lacking practical boundaries, maybe idealizing partners unrealistically.
So as always with astrology, it's complex. Venus in Taurus sets a baseline, but its interactions tell more of the story.
Exactly. Venus provides those core values, the desires for pleasure, harmony, connection that shape the Taurian experience.
Okay, great. Let's shift now to focus on the inherent strength we often see with Taurus. What are some of those really defining positive traits?
Well, a major one we touched on is the moon in Taurus. It's exalted there.
Right, its best place.
Which signifies this natural emotional stability, a real peacefulness inside, plus that practical common sense with money, home stuff, and often that green thumb, that connection to nurturing growing things.
That emotional stability sounds like such a powerful resource for dealing with life.
It really is. Taurians are also known for being incredibly steadfast, persistent, once they commit to something.
They see it through.
They really do. They usually prefer to finish one thing before starting another, making sure it's done right. That methodical approach is key to their reliability.
Yeah, that dedication is something I really admire in Taurian energy.
Definitely. And because they're so trustworthy, they often make excellent public servants, people you can count on to do the job with integrity. They also often have a real proficiency, whether it's in arts or sciences. They tend to get very good at whatever they dedicate themselves to.
So talent combined with that persistence leads to mastery.
Often, yes. They also tend to be deliberate, not necessarily chatty, but thoughtful in their words and actions.
Considered?
Considered, exactly.
Cool.
Circumspect. And they often improve with age, gaining wisdom through that careful approach.
Like a fine wine, perhaps?
Maybe. And thinking about that fixed earth nature again, you can feel Saturn's influence, even if it's not the ruler. That gives persistence, determination in practical things, and a really serious emotional investment in responsibilities. They mean it.
That seriousness underscores their reliability, though maybe it can be heavy sometimes.
It can be, yes. And just one more point from some older traditions. Jupiter in the second decan of Taurus
Okay.
was said to indicate high position, lots of success, important friends, honors, plus a kind, warm, genial nature, and maybe wealth through good fortune.
Wow, that sounds like a really blessed placement within Taurus.
It suggests how that Taurian steadiness, boosted by Jupiter's expansion, can lead to really positive outcomes, both internally and externally.
So a deep well of stability, talent, potential for success. Taurus clearly has a lot going for it. But now let's look at the other side, the common challenges Taurians might face.
Right. It's important for balance. Building on those decans, again, that second decan, ruled by Jupiter, the one with potential success.
Yeah.
Well, traditionally, it was also linked to a possible lack of constancy in marriage. Maybe indicating more than one marriage or some inconsistency there. Shows the complexity, right?
It does. A reminder that it's never just one simple thing in astrology.
Exactly. Then the third decan, ruled by Mars, that one was sometimes associated with potential loss through conflicts, maybe secret enemies, unforeseen issues.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and possibly troubles in marriage, again, separation from family. It could also suggest being unreliable at times, maybe missing chances due to being too timid or too bold at the wrong moments.
That's quite a contrast to the typical steady Taurus image. Shows how those internal divisions matter.
They really do. And going back to the moon in Taurus, while it's great for stability, it can sometimes make it harder to navigate more fluid, complex emotions. There might be a tendency to base security only on external, tangible things, focusing heavily on sensory gratification.
So the need for tangible security could limit dealing with deeper, less concrete feelings.
It potentially could, yeah, making it harder to explore those inner needs that aren't easily met by possessions or comfort.
That makes sense.
And that fixed nature itself, the source of their stability, that can definitely show up as strong resistance to change.
Stubbornness.
Well, it can be perceived that way.
Okay.
Letting go of routines, comfortable situations can be a genuine struggle.
I can imagine.
There's also sometimes a potential for a subtle kind of conceit, like a quiet self-satisfaction that can sit alongside real talent. It's not always obvious, but it could potentially hinder further growth if unchecked.
A kind of quiet confidence that might stop them questioning themselves further.
Perhaps. And individuals with Moon in Taurus might find they need a push from outside to get new things started.
Right.
Their follow-through is usually amazing.
Yeah.
But that internal spark, that inertia, might need external fuel.
So getting going can be tough, even if they keep going for ages once started.
Exactly. And lastly, thinking about that potential Saturn influence, again, through fixed Earth.
Yeah.
There can be a tendency to get really weighed down by responsibilities. Taking them so seriously, it becomes stressful, overwhelming.
Okay.
Learning to manage commitments without being crushed by them is often a key developmental task.
It really sounds like the Taurian path involves finding that sweet spot, that balance between all these powerful strengths and these potential challenges.
Absolutely. Understanding both sides gives us a much richer, more compassionate view of the whole Taurus archetype.
So just to sum up our deep dive today, we've looked at Taurus's really grounded emotional core, its deep tie to the earth, and the need for material security.
And its steady fixed modality, plus that Venusian influence bringing in harmony values, and pleasure.
Right. And we covered those core strengths, reliability, persistence, alongside some challenges like resistance to change, or specific dynamics linked to the decans.
And hopefully, as you've been listening, you've started thinking about how these Taurian threads might weave through your own life or the lives of people you know. Maybe seeing those patterns a bit differently now.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. And here's one final thing for you to mull over. How does that fundamental Taurian need for stability mesh, or maybe clash, with the fact that life is always changing? What lessons are there for all of us in that dynamic, that tension between wanting permanence and living in a world that's constantly in flux?
That's a deep one. It really gets to the heart of how we all try to find security in an insecure world.